This video is a get ready with me video where I'm going to chat through with you about my spiritual awakening while I do my makeup because I love girly things and I love looking pretty. So let's get right into it. All right. Well, let's say in 2016, I had what I consider a twin flame experience. It might have been 2017. And this was after a series of life-changing experiences. To begin with, I had exited a 7-year relationship probably 9 months to a year before. And leaving that relationship for many reasons was so challenging. So challenging. I essentially relied on him for a long time as a helper to get me through my mother's death. So when my mother died, he came into my life very shortly after the partner I was with for 7 years. And he kind of stepped in as a mother. Like, he was just very loving. And we had our differences, but he really provided a safe space for me. Now, granted, looking back, of course, I've learned a lot about relationships, and I saw that we were very much emotionally disconnected. And that's what you learn in a spiritual awakening. You realize how emotionally disconnected you are to yourself. So in retrospect, I see that. But at the time, we were with each other for both love and karmic reasons to resolve a lot of things within ourselves that were unhealed. So coming out of that relationship, I was on this quest, and really I was committed to healing my relationship with myself because I was in a lot of agony and loneliness after. So I started, with all that free time, no longer in a relationship, I just was pouring into myself as much as I possibly could. And that looked a lot like reading self-discovery books. It looked like meditating. It was journaling. And amidst all of this, I was just getting ready to go to graduate school to get my master's in counseling because I was going to be a therapist. So I had just moved to an entirely new place. I mean, I didn't know anyone. When I moved there, I didn't know anyone. I had only spoken to the girl that I was renting a room from on the phone. So I moved to a whole new place, a whole new doing completely different things, starting a program. And I was excited about it. I was going through this transformation and I really loved the material we were learning about. Oh my gosh. And this plays into the awakening because when you learn about psychology, you learn about some of the deeper mechanisms that are going on with people and how it's shaping their lives and how essentially, to a large degree, we are creating our results in our lives. We have that power. We have a lot of power. Now, there's still an element, and this is part of the spiritual awakening, that you don't have control over. Coming to grips with that, coming to acceptance with that is very hard. If you've been a control freak or you're someone who feels unstable, unsafe in life, the last thing you want to do is surrender and accept the fact that you don't have the ability to make everything the way you want it to be. It's just not true. I don't care what the past, lessons in spirituality are. There is a certain degree, a humbling degree of this, what we call co-creation, where you create your side and then there's forces beyond that contribute to that. Okay. I was learning all this. And at one stage I thought I created everything. I thought I was taking responsibility for everything to the point of frustration. Like, what's wrong with me that I cannot create what I want in life? And I really wanted a really amazing relationship. That's what I was desiring at the time. And so I was even doing meditations, like twin flame meditations, to manifest my twin flame. I didn't even know what a twin flame was. I was just doing meditations about soulmates and love and all that. Whew. So that's where a big opening happened, because I started to really believe that the deepest soulmate, the deepest relationship existed. Like, I was opening myself up to the belief of that. And as I did those meditations, I did feel a deep sense of connection. There's noise outside. I felt a deep sense of connection to the possibility of this person. And I would almost say I connected with this person's energy. That's how I felt. And meanwhile, I was in a course in the counseling program about relationships, love and relationships. So we started reading at the same time, simultaneously, all these books about attachment theory, about how to get the love that you want, etc., etc. And I went to class one evening after learning all of this and having my mind blown up. There's noise outside. I felt a deep sense of connection to the possibility of this person. And I would almost say I connected with this person's energy. That's how I felt. And meanwhile, I was in a course in the counseling program about relationships, love and relationships. So we started reading at the same time, simultaneously, all these books about attachment theory, about how to get the love that you want, etc., etc. And I went to class one evening after learning all of this and having my mind blown open about love and relationships and how they work, and how we must love ourselves first and all this. And as I sat there, I felt an energy on the left side of me. Now, I can't say this for certain because I can only speak truth, but I noticed someone on the left side of me, and he was unfamiliar. He was not part of the class. I presumed he was taking the class maybe to make up for the fact that he was in another course and maybe missed that night or day. So he came to our class to kind of see or to catch up on the material. That's what I kind of presumed. But I couldn't deny that I felt some weird thing there. I felt almost like I guess you could call it attraction, but I really wasn't consciously like, oh, I'm attracted to this person. That wasn't what was first going through me. It was different. And so me being my open self, when we were walking out that night, we kind of like at the door, we kind of like both were at the door at the same time. And I asked him, oh, are you new to the class? Are you, and he said something like, no, I'm just watching or stepping in, making up for a class I missed, something like that. So I think I was pretty right about my presumption why he was there. And there was just something there for me. Again, I wouldn't say it was like attraction. I would just say there was something strong. And then I won't get into the whole twin flame journey here. I'm not going to, because this is about my spiritual awakening. But aren't I looking much more dazzling? So after that, I kept running into him. And again, I was learning a lot about myself. I was listening to like Abraham Hicks, and I was opening myself up spiritually, a lot of Buddhism, like learning about the Buddhism philosophies. Again, counseling school brings up a lot of stuff. I mean, we learn about mindfulness, we learn about love, compassion, meditations, really changing the consciousness, the field through our own personal consciousness and agency. So I was deeply getting into that, and I was facing all of my trauma, and I was looking at patterns in my family, and I was having moments of panic, of fear, of disgrace, of disgust, of sadness, and just seeing how the unconscious patterns of my own family members had contributed to who I was at that point. The person that I was that was in desperate need of mending myself with love and compassion. And I had to do a lot of healing around my mother and my father. And that's a continual thing, especially with my mother having passed away. You know, there was a lot of things that even brought up, even though she was no longer alive. I realized how much I idolized her. And I didn't see her for who she was. I saw her the way a child sees their mother. So not as necessarily a person who has inner, challenges or weaknesses. I saw that, but I also really idolized her, thinking she was all love all the time. And that wasn't the case, because none of us are that way. None of us. And I had to accept that. And I had to look at the unloving patterns. I had to look at a lot of it. So, I did that with the relationship with her. And I also started doing that with the relationship with my dad, like mother healing, father healing, healing those wounds. And let's say with the twin flame, I consider him a twin flame. And the reason I do, and I really don't have any interest in really knowing or caring at this point if he felt the same way. I honestly doubt he did. But for me, when I looked into his eyes at one point, I felt so much of myself blast open. It could make me cry. I felt an intimacy with him that made me dig so deep in myself. Intimacy with myself. Because ultimately, he wasn't interested. I don't blame him. I was also a mess inside. And I don't know who this person is really inside himself, but he triggered something in me. And I thank him, because when he was not interested in me, it made me face my deepest fear of, or my deepest pain of rejection. And feeling like unlovable. I'm so sorry if you can hear the crazy gardeners. Ugh. Anyways. So, in that experience, it was probably one of the most painful experiences of my life. I can say that. Because it went on for like a year. And it was like this never-ending hamster wheel of facing my depths of pain about my life, myself. Feeling like I got so close to the idealized love that we all imagine, and having it like taken, like I couldn't trust myself anymore. That's how I felt, because I allowed myself to want to be with this person, whatever degree that is. And it didn't happen. And I felt really afraid to open myself up to love again, to trust myself, because I thought I trusted myself. I thought there was so many synchronicities that said this person is the person. And when it wasn't, I was like, wow, I cannot trust myself. But that really initiated me into this deepest spiritual awakening, because I had to come to grips with the fact that I wasn't in control, unlike what some spiritual teachers teach. And I remember sitting on my bedroom floor having an out-of-body experience. I was at such a depth of like surrender almost, that my ego, the way I describe it is that the concept that I had of myself kind of like disappeared for a moment. There was like a dissolving. I felt the gravity of death, of my kind of like my out of body self. It scared the living Christ out of me. And I sat there in this literal, like, I thought I was going to die. I became like unglued from my ego. And it scared me so much that I want to say, like, I went to bed, I felt like everything was moving and swirling around, and I was terrified. And the next day I basically had like a breakdown, and I had to call a therapist. And of course, there's so many details to the buildup of this, but I had to call a therapist and set up an appointment because I was so afraid. I was feeling like this depth of my mortality and all of these things. And so I scheduled appointments with her. And when I went for maybe like 9 months, like once a week or every other week, something like that. And wow, I hope that's not too annoying, because I'm annoyed. And through that, I was able to heal the fact that I really approach life is very hard. I had a filter on life that life is hard. And so I would always kind of gravitate towards difficult things because I was reinforcing my belief that life was hard and I had to work hard to make life work and all of that. And that was a belief that was really causing me a lot of pain because I was putting myself through a lot of unnecessary challenges. There were some that, of course, are good, but there's also ones that we kind of punish ourselves with unconsciously. So I'm going to kind of wrap up this, but I mention all of this not to bring discouragement, but that now I still have my challenges. I still have things that I'm resolving. I still sometimes wonder if this will ever end, if the spiritual boot camp will ever end. But that was a few years ago. Going through a lot of that was a few years ago. And I've also found such peace in my body, in myself, and this alignment with who I am and my values that I didn't have before. So before I felt very like adrift, and now I feel very anchored, even when life is challenging, brings its challenges, and it only gets deeper and deeper. And it's another thing is that it's not unusual to feel a lot of psychic abilities opening. Actually, this is to be expected because you're reconnecting with your soul. Knowings, tingling on your different energy systems. I discovered that I was an energy healer during this process as well, through a lot of synchronicities and a lot of experiences. My awakening opened up a lot of my chakras, so I felt my body vibrating on different, I still do all the time. That's one of the ways that I receive information. And so that there's this reconnection that we have with ourselves when we go through a spiritual awakening. So there's no other option. If you're going through this, if you're researching this, one, it's probably because you're either going through it or you're about to. And secondly is there's actually no choice. You don't have a choice. Because if this already came into your life, or it's going to, it has its way with you. That's why you learn about surrender through it. Because you have to constantly surrender yourself to what it's doing, the force that's moving through you. Sometimes it's harder than others, but you recognize that the more you resist it, the more old patterns and self-sabotage and pain you cause for yourself. And that's just not an option at some point. Your body just can't handle that. Your frequency, your vibration is going to be so high that any self-sabotage or resisting of the force that's moving through you, it's going to cause you too much agony. You're going to be averse to it. So it's a very reinforcing experience and process. What I'm saying is that the force, the higher intelligence, is so strong that you really have no choice other than to just give yourself to it. And the more you do that, the more you start to trust it, because your life will start to reveal better for you. And so it's not like what I used to believe is that there was a demon inside of me or something, because it actually felt demonic to go against this force. It was more crippling. It was more painful on a visceral level even. But when we surrender to the higher intelligence, it's a purification. You purify out and you realign with who you really are, your spiritual core nature, your divine blueprint. And you see that reflected back to you. It's very evident. You provide service to others that is at a level that is high. and you also have a deeper sense of love and trust and peace in yourself. So I know it can be scary. It's still kind of scary sometimes for me, but it's that continual spiritual practice of surrendering. If you connect with me, if you connect with this, there is such a special quality about you. A quality that this world desperately needs. And I have this appreciation for souls that chose to go through this, because it's a unique path. It's noise. And it's grueling in its own way. So there's so much courage to take that on and to be the way showers, to be the guides, to be the healers of ourselves first and foremost, but also to bring that knowledge and wisdom to the world through our interaction and relationships. So thank you. Love from me to you. And I will see you very soon.